Hey guys, welcome back to Vintage Super League. I'm Eric Froelich, and I am joined by the great one himself, Bob Marr. How you doing, Bob?
Doing well. I got one win out of the way, so I can
that
consider myself
was quite
lucky.
a show. That game one. So you end up casting on turn one, game one. You basically had the decision of casting Ancestral or Paradoxical Outcome first.
Yes.
It felt close. Maybe it's not. I don't know if you have an opinion on that, or if you were very sure that casting the Outcome for 3 before casting the Ancestral was better. That does guarantee that you can actually cast both of them in the same turn. Well, it's not a guarantee otherwise, but that one definitely felt interesting. The rest of the match wasn't too tough. I'll force the Will Stony Silence and kill him.
If I'm just gold fishing, I think it's almost always right to Ancestral first because your Paradoxical Outcome will probably be bigger. But not really knowing what he's playing, whether it gets Force of Willed right there, and hopefully I can do Ancestral and something else the next turn. But it's also like if I go to Ancestral there and it gets Mental Misstepped, I just sit there and say go. It's just, I felt like there was a lot of ways for me to run into trouble with Ancestral.
Yeah, although I probably become similar either way. Like that one gets Force of Will, yeah. So. Yeah, I mean, from there on, you found the Force of Will, got the counter with Stony Silence, and just kill him. So, I guess there was a few different things you could Vamp Tutor for, but they were all going to win the game.
Yeah.
I guess you could have gotten Yawgmoth's Will, and I don't know if your mana was a little bit too tight for that, or obviously Mind's Desire for 10 is pretty solid, so pretty reasonable
Yawgmoth's
choice.
Will was the first card I was looking at in there. I went for the Mind's Desire so I wouldn't necessarily have to lay a land. It might hit Academy, but it was,
if your draw 10 wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
Game 2. Yeah, Game 2 was actually an interesting one, too. Like, you basically were forced no matter what to cast Wheel of Fortune on turn 1. Your hand did nothing. Chris's hand, his opener was Lotus, Volcanic, Mentor, and then his 3 cards for Brainstorm, Pyro. So, like, you casting turn 1 Chain of Vapor is perfect for him. So, like, he just gets a Monk. He's going to lose the cards anyway. If you were Clairvoyant, you're just going to print that on Chrome Box and cast your Wheel, and things look slightly better for you. It doesn't change things too dramatically, but you have an extra mana and he has one less Monk. But the Wheel gave you an interesting selection of cards that definitely gave you the chance to win the next turn. His hand was great though.
It gave me just enough, and the fact that you can respond with Paradoxical Outcome in order to Flusterstorm 2 spells matters a lot after board in that matchup, and it really came into play there.
Like, he found card drawing and Gush and Misstep and Force. And he was actually able to set up, with his Ponder to Treasure Cruise, and he found a second Force. So it's just like, your hand was set up so that you actually beat his Misstep plus Force because you had Flusterstorm, and you could just resolve Paradoxical Outcome and win the game. But then he drew the second Force, so you actually had to top deck something pretty reasonable to actually get through both forces. And of course, Defense Grid was perfect for that. So
yeah, Defense Grid was just what I needed.
There were a ton of things, honestly. Like, a lot of your card drawing, you could have just drawn Time Vault, that would have done it. So there are definitely a lot of good things you could have drawn, but Defense Grid was just kind of, that's the perfect one. That'll make sure that we can handle this, although that stack ended up lasting about 8 minutes to see Defense Grid result.
With the Gitaxian Probe, I felt really lucky to have drawn the Defense Grid, obviously, but I just kept having nightmares that I was going to misclick something, or I was going to force a will using my outcome and then not have enough for the tendrils. But it all worked.
I made sure to troll you plenty of times in chat. Like, when you had game 1 locked up, I'm like, so this is where Bob starts casting his spell, so Lion's Eye discard his hand. Chris will play Monastery Mentor, and we'll see what Bob draws. So I made sure to get in the needles that were very much deserved.
Well deserved.
But it sounds like our players are ready, so let's take it down to the match between Chris Pikula and Oliver 2. Welcome back to Vintage Super League. We've got the Mentor Mirror match. Oliver 2 on Blue-White Mentor. Chris Pikula on Jeskai Mentor. Oliver 1-0, Pikula 0-1. So Chris is going to try to even things out. I'll try to do the same next round, and we'll all go into round 3 on even footing. We'll see what happens. So, Oliver won the roll. His hand looks. I mean, it's certainly not perfect. It doesn't have a threat, but he's got Sapphire, which is great. He's got 3 card drawing spells. He's got pretty good counter spell. He's got the Gush, so very solid hand there. And Chris's hand is slower, but definitely plenty of weapons. If he can get Dak Faden down, which he's got multiple ways to protect it, he's going to turn that Treasure Cruise on quickly. Swords is a pretty good card in the mirror. Of course, that Flooded Strand's not going to get a plateau, so his mana is a little bit awkward. He doesn't have any 1-mana draw spells, so his hand's definitely not great. What do you think about Chris's hand?
I mean, I think the Dak Faden and Treasure Cruise are extremely powerful, but personally, if I open up a 7-card hand like Oliver, I'm thrilled. I mean, between the Preordain and the Ponder. Yeah,
Oliver's hand basically has Demonic Tutors in it because you just get to see your whole deck.
Right. It's so much card drawing. It just means his spells are going to be incredible for many turns.
Do you keep Chris's hand?
I do, because I don't know what a 6-card hand necessarily looks like.
I mean, any hand with a Preordain in some ways feels like it's a little bit better. Although I guess that's not necessarily true against an opponent. Has 4 mental missteps, but.
And he hasn't drawn any of the blanks. Like, you don't want to draw Stony Silence here. So at least he has 7 spells.
I think that Oliver and Chris might only have 1 Stony Silence in their main deck. I'm not sure. Did you look at Chris's list already?
No.
Let's see. Chris Pikula. So he's only got 3 Pro. He's got a main deck Fragmentize. And 2 Stony Silence. So yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so in that case, I really like having the deck in my hand in case I draw any of that garbage later.
Yeah, I mean, deck isn't necessarily the easiest thing to resolve. Now, we know Oliver's deck has cards like Spell Pierce. He has multiple Flusterstorms. Flusterstorm, it's tough to resolve anything through that card.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't actually counter the deck itself, but it makes sure that you're protected against the other counter magic. And once you get into that war, you tend to come out on top.
Yeah, but I think I always keep Chris's hand, especially on the draw. Actually, I don't know if player draw matters at all. I think I just keep Chris's hand. I'm not happy about it, but I think I keep it.
Yeah, it definitely feels like the type of hand that I'd be more inclined to mulligan on the draw, although I guess Force of Will. Like, you have to assume this is Oliver. He probably has turn 1 Lotus Mentor, in which case having Force of Will is really solid.
And having Plow in your opener, yeah.
Yeah, and Plow, and if you find another land, you can potentially protect that. It is interesting that he does have a white card and 2 red cards, and he only has that basic island actually looks kind of poor here, but
yeah,
what can you do? So, not sure if the players know that we're ready for them to start. I mean, Oliver is the one thinking right now.
Is this like chess, where you just run down your clock to intimidate your opponent?
I mean, I'm just gonna say right now that I'm sure that they are having a verbal sparring war in the in the chat after the Twitter wars of the past week, but I don't actually think that's true. All right, so yeah, Oliver's hand's great. He keeps, and he's off to the races. It's a little bit interesting because he definitely wants another land. He definitely wants to find threats. The counters are always good. All the card drawing is always good. It's like you kind of want to find it. Like, there really aren't bad finds when you're happy with the land and you're happy with basically every spell in your deck. I guess he doesn't want to find another Gush. That's not really useful. I don't know how much he wants Force of Will. It's fine.
Yeah, I don't think you want Force of Will anytime soon in this matchup.
Yeah, but you're kind of just like, all right, I'll just start drawing. Whatever I hit is good. Now he's going to work with Perfect Information. He knows that Chris is not going to be doing much, in all likelihood, for a while. Now, that could change pretty quickly if Chris is able to find a Black Lotus off the top where he can play turn 1 Dak Faden with Pyroblast and Force of Will back up. But barring the Black Lotus draw. Sword Splash Air is not great against what Chris is currently holding.
No, it's usually good to have one just in case, but not particularly great here.
Yeah, I wonder if I don't know if he shuffled or not with the Ponder. So he might have kept the swords on top with the Ponder, and not shuffled away, wanting to draw it before he cast the probe. Just the Mind Sculptor is maybe the slowest card he could have found. I guess Dig Through Time would have been next on the list.
And there's a land he needed.
Yeah, this is kind of interesting because I don't want to shuffle any of these cards away, but when I cast Brainstorm, I'm almost inclined to not.
I totally agree with you.
Well, it worked out pretty well as he drew a lot of blanks. I guess, that's actually, I didn't really think about that. The fact that Swords to Plowshare he knows is bad against Chris's hand right now, that is actually a reasonable card to shuffle away. I didn't really think that through very well myself, so this actually makes more sense than I originally thought.
But I think Brainstorm can still be extremely powerful later.
Sure, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I would have just sat on it for a little while. It's going to work out just fine, for sure, but...
He actually doesn't have like a great path here, just because I guess Chris can't actually find the lands that will cast the Swords and the Pyroblast still. He hasn't found another land yet. But if your opponent does have Swords and Pyroblast out, you don't want to invest all that much in protecting your Mentor. So he's probably going to next turn want to cast Mentor, be able to cast a Spell Pierce on whatever gets cast. Hopefully, turn that into at least a Monk or two before it gets Swords. Another Mentor, that should help.
Yeah.
Chris can't really fetch because he doesn't know what he needs. Well probably wishes he had the Swords now. Now, if Chris ends up casting this, it does mean that he has nothing in the graveyard. It's not really flipping. Mentor's going to resolve if he casts it.
Chris decided against.
Well, Time Walk is really good.
Yeah.
All right, so Chris is going to have an interesting decision here, assuming Oliver goes for Mentor plus Spell Pierce on the Pyroblast, of whether he wants to actually force a bullet, because he does have some clunky cards in his hand. I think I just was talking about him Pyroblasting a Mentor.
Yeah, I think
I'm tired.
Yeah. No, I think they should just get Force of Will here, and then he can't Spell Pierce because he would just pay for it.
Right, plus, Oliver knows... He knows 5 of the cards, right? He doesn't know Jace.
Right.
Oliver's probably just happy to have this happen. Wow, he discarded the deck over either Jace. That's interesting. That's surprising.
Maybe he's just decided right now he really wants to go get white mana with that land. I don't know.
Yeah, it is decently likely that he would prefer to have white mana. But do you want both Jaces? He's not even casting Vryn's Prodigy. I understand he wants to cast it with Pyroblast or something else up, but...
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is bad for him.
Yeah, this is not how he drew this up in his head.
He might respond with Swords, but I imagine Oliver would then Spell Pierce that.
Right. I think you have to respond with Swords here.
Yeah. And so if Oliver finds a Mox, the game is very close to over, because he'll be able to cast Time Walk with, what is it going to be, 3 Monks or 4 Monks if he has a Mox. I guess he doesn't have any other spells to follow it up with, but this Gush is going to resolve, so
right.
Definitely has the opportunity to find some action.
It doesn't. I don't know what Chris is going to do on his turn, anyways. Even if he doesn't get the opportunity to Time Walk this turn.
Wow, we found a counter for the Swords too. Oliver just debating whether he wants to pay life or mana.
Yeah, but this is...
And Chris did find the Stony Silence that you talked about not wanting.
Oliver's checking deck lists real quick.
and emails and everything else. Anything but studying.
Whatever you could do to distract yourself from school.
Yeah, I remember school. Not very well, but I wake up in a cold sweat about 3 times a year thinking that I'm back in school for some reason, that I have some kind of assignment. And then it takes me a few minutes after I wake up to realize how little sense that makes and how old I am. Oh, Oliver too.
Yeah.
Hasn't dropped a game yet. He's going to make it real tough if he gets to 2-0, 4-0. Puts himself in great position on tiebreakers. Obviously, has a bunch of wins too.
Yeah. Well, now Chris at least gets to take the couple stony silences out.
Yeah, that's good. No, at this point, you're just playing back-to-back matches. You still haven't won a game. You're just like shaking your head. What is going on here?
Why do they always have it?
Yeah, I mean, the changes here are pretty cosmetic. I mean, both players are taking out their stony silences because there's only a couple artifacts.
Right.
Other than that, basically every card's good. Like, it's just kind of how it is. Chris is slashing red for a bunch of Pyroblast on the Dak Fade, and all of which are main no sideboard cards and no sudden shock. So a little bit surprising that
you'd go through the effort of putting red in and not dropping in at least a couple sudden shocks is definitely surprising.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not particularly high on Pyroblast myself. I'm not super high on Dak Fade. I think Dak Fade is a very good card, but if you already have Oliver 2 in your group, who you're fairly certain is going to play Blue-White Mentor, it definitely gets a little bit worse. I mean, obviously still a fine card against Mentor, it's just not great. Alright, so look at these hands. Chris's hand. It's a little Force of Will flooded. It has, the good card drawing. It has two of the restricted card drawing spells on a Preordain. It's the lead on Probe. We don't know Oliver's 7th card. There's a good chance he's just going to misstep this. When you have 2 missteps, that just is something that gets considered very often.
I agree, but aren't there a tremendous number of really good one-casting cost spells in this matchup?
There are, but I mean, not a tremendous amount. I guess it depends on how much value you put on Swords to Plowshare in a hand that doesn't have Mentor in it, but he does have 2 creatures, so I guess it is pretty high. Although Oliver's hand doesn't have any card drawing spell and only 1 land, so
yeah,
that actually makes Mental Misstep even more important for your opponent's mental missteps in case you are able to find a Preordained Ponder, Brainstorm, Ancestral. Because if he doesn't, he could be in trouble. So Chris finds 2nd land, gets his Preordained Misstep, no big surprise there. Wow.
Well.
And there we are.
It's right on time.
Oliver 2, ladies and gentlemen. Doing what Oliver 2 does. Cast turn 1 creatures in the deck with no 1-drops.
Hey, he has 2 whole moxes. I mean, come on.
Well, I played him in the first group round. He had turn 1 Lotus against me multiple times there, and he's at it tonight. So I actually won 2 different games. I was on Shops, of course, the first time against the turn 1 Lotus, which is not very easy to do.
No.
Yeah, we had a pretty great match. All right, another interesting decision for Oliver. I assume he's letting this Ponder resolve, save that misstep because Jace stays active. He's able to protect against something like Swords to Plowshare. Things are looking pretty good for him. Chris does find Swords. He knows about the misstep. He's actually not even playing the Flooded Strand.
Yeah, I think he wants to save it for after the Brainstorm.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
This is a real uphill battle already for Chris. And I know we're on turn 2, and his opening hand was pretty good. He found the lands he kind of needed. But, 2 Force of Wills is just you know you're into at least a mulligan there because you're going to cast
Mhm.
him at some point, and that's down a card. And he had a bunch of card draw, but none of it was actually card advantage. And this Jace does threaten to be a real threat.
Yeah, I think he's going to have a very hard time getting that Jace off the board.
Yeah, I mean, he can already do it if he wants. I mean, he can play Swords and Force of Will with 2 lands for Spell Pierce if he really wants to. It's not super exciting. Well, this Wasteland actually makes Jace active right now. He can flip it.
Yeah, so no more plowing. It just becomes a pain.
Now, Chris does have 3 copies of Pyroblast in his main deck, so those are still in there. He held on to the Flood Assurance, so he can get a Volcanic. So it's not like he doesn't have answers to this, but Oliver, essentially has 4-ish counterspells in his hand.
Yeah,
Treasure Cruise is a big draw.
that is, especially if this gets spell pierced. Or sorry, misstepped.
Yeah, the problem is he actually has. Now he's going all in.
Yeah.
If he casts the Treasure Cruise, it's going to get spell pierced. It's going to get forced, which I assume is going to get forced back. So then he's just got a Planeswalker that I guess he just ponders on his turn with Jace. He minuses and ponders. I mean, I don't really know how realistic it is to go for the ultimate. I guess it kind of depends on what he actually draws for his turn. I mean, a Jace ultimate would be pretty cool, but...
Wow, I'm
Chris,
shocked Chris didn't go for the Treasure Cruise there.
he knows about Spell Pierce and Force, right? Or no? I know he's pro, but I don't know exactly what was in the hand.
Yeah, I don't remember all the cards.
We were talking earlier about, I really like watching coverage of events on Magic Online because I feel like you can kind of see exactly what's happening. You know the phases, you know what's on the stack. Well, if you're watching in paper, you don't necessarily know what people are saying, what is happening that is silent, what phase we're in, who we're waiting on, etc. Now, the one downside that I feel like is Gitaxian Probe and Thoughtseize, where they put the hand on the table. The commentators now know exactly what they had. They might not have known before. Where here we have perfect information, and it's a very easy to forget whether Probe has happened, what they saw with Probe, etc. So
Yeah,
I think that's the only big part. So for sure he knew about Spell Pierce. I think he knew about Force of Will. I'm not entirely sure what the hand was. Obviously, he's played around Spell Pierce by making sure he had 2 lands. I wonder if... Oh, this is a tough decision. I would probably discard the Spell Pierce.
probably Chris has made a pretty big effort to play around it.
Yeah, but, I mean, as much as you play around it, there's only so much you can do. It's going to get something at some point. But it's tough to figure out exactly what makes the most sense here. Although, no, Oliver, he knows about Force of Will. Having the Spell Pierce in hand could potentially...
Well,
I guess it's not realistically going to hit a Swords either, huh?
Not really, but the Snapcaster can bring back the misstep and hit a Swords.
Right, well, it's not... He can't... He's so far away from being able to cast Mentor and leaving up Snapcaster, and obviously the Snapcaster's gone now, but... I mean, that Treasure Cruise was just blank city.
Yeah, that was terrible.
It's good to clear those cards off the top, I guess. If that Treasure Cruise got countered, this game was just over. But those aren't going to do Chris any favors anytime soon.
No.
They do make Spell Pierce look even worse, though, because Chris can hit land drops for basically the rest of the game. So now we're on Oliver debating whether he wants to fetch. Untap. He's probably going to kill. He's going to cast Mentor. The question is whether he's going to cash in this Jace for a spell. Because, if he just casts... Oh, I guess he still has protection. The Spell Pierce can still counter a Sports Splash here because Chris decided not to play his Mox.
Yeah, but Chris will just wait till his turn, and now there's no tokens.
Well, yeah, but I mean, he could have cast in Jace and potentially cast, a Probe. I don't know if that's good, but it was an option.
Now Chris can... No, he doesn't have enough to play the Mentor and get away with plowing.
He does. can lead on plow.
Sure. I was just trying to figure out if he could get it.
Oh yeah, he can't get the extra monk, but he will get one for the Mock Sapphire, and he's actually just going to be in great shape. That Mentor is the perfect draw.
Yeah, it's the reward for the 3 blanks off the Treasure Cruise.
True. All right, so Chris is in great shape to get on the board tonight. There still is a Planeswalker, although it's really doing so little right now. Although I guess Chris also doesn't have a spell himself, so it's not like he's triggering a bunch of prowess or anything like that. I don't know about that one. I mean, he's still going to get the Monk off it. Stopping the 5th mana is not exciting, but...
No, because I agree with you. I think eventually the Spell Pierce would get something.
Yeah, I kind of want to change my opinion on that after Chris drew 3 mana sources off Treasure Cruise, but there's actually a reasonable chance that Spell Pierce would never get anything. And by getting Mock Sapphire, it's still got nothing.
In this game, I agree with you. There's a good chance that Spell Pierce doesn't get anything, but I think that's what you're hoping for. I mean, your opponent's pretty...
That's a really good job from Oliver. If he can get this Mentor off the board, that Jace controls a Monk really well. Chris will have to put multiple spells together before he can even attack profitably. The question is just whether Oliver casts it right now.
I think you almost certainly have to cast it now.
It's actually like if your opponent drew a Force of Will, which they can hard cast. Casting on upkeep means that they get a prowess trigger, but they don't have an extra monk to attack you, so it's a wash. And they don't have the 5 mana to use to cast something. So I think it's probably better to cast an upkeep. It's basically irrelevant, but...
I was just thinking of the option to flash it back, but then I guess you do lose your Jace if you go that route.
Yeah, true. Alright, Time Walk means he gets in for 1 point of damage and gets an extra turn. Chris looking for a Dig Through Time or Ancestral Recall. And Power Blast is good too.
It's very good right here.
Chris attacking the Planeswalker last turn foolishly, just spewed off a point of damage. Is he going to attack with his O2 Monk? Yeah, send a message, sure.
Yeah.
What are the odds that Chris was trying to send a message versus didn't know that Jace carried over till the next turn?
I mean, I think he would have noticed it. At least while he was tapping it.
All right, so we're putting both sides at 50-50. That's fair. Preordained is a really good draw here. He's just looking for any action, and Preordained sees so many cards. Gush. Weird art of Gush. Yeah, Gush is incredible here. We don't know if the other card went on the top or the bottom. I guess we don't even know if Gush was put on top. Oh, well, those are good ones too.
Huh?
Some said it couldn't be done, but Chris Pikula is going to win a game.
He's coming dangerously close to winning a game.
All you naysayers out there. His hand's still pretty mediocre for all the things he did, but plenty good enough. Deck Fade. I assume he's going to plus this. I think minusing this would be pretty bad.
Yeah.
There's Jace.
And a Gush.
Man, he's got too many riches. None of them shades. Discard the Gush shays.
He doesn't need all those lands anymore with that Gush.
Well, he did find Jace the Mind Sculptor. I guess he can discard the lands, but he kind of wants to just play a land and leave up Mindbreak Trap in a way.
Oh, I agree with that. I think just leaving up a hard counter like that puts this game away.
Pikula wins. Saw it here.
Wow.
All right, so we get a game 3. I can't even imagine what Oliver is going to do to him on turn 1. Like, it's going to be gross.
Turn 1, two mentors.
Yeah. With 2 monks. Not a bad turn. Going right back to those notes. What you working with? I don't think they're going to make any changes. This is not standard where your deck changes dramatically on the player draw in a lot of matchups.
Yeah.
They'll both look at their Katakis and Stony Silences and Disenchants in the sideboard and then Graph Diggers, Cages, and eventually hit some net. And Chris deletes one of his Mindbreak traps.
I don't know. Mindbreak Trap seems like it could be quite good against Oliver on the play.
Yeah. This is risky. Well, yep. He realizes what everyone who's watched Oliver realizes. Mindbreak Trap is good against his mentor deck.
I'm surprised to see the DAC coming out. What came in for that?
I don't know. Maybe it passes out. I don't know if that was there before or not, but... Oh, Chris's hand looks...
This is a great start.
Real nice. Oliver, we're waiting on his last card again, but he's going to have a good hand. Snapcaster's reasonable.
I was fully expecting Sapphire for turn 1 creature.
Yeah, Chris kind of has all the answers for this one. He's going to misstep the Spiridane.
I don't think he's going to. I think he's going to hold onto the blue card for force.
Reasonable. Yeah. Spiridane's a really good card, but I guess having a forceful active is nice too. I mean, ditching Time Walk if you had to cast your force is not like, too terrible a thing.
I think Chris's plan right now is just to go land Mox, Time Walk, land Mentor.
Yeah, that's a good plan. Yeah, he's going to put Oliver in a tough spot early. So Oliver held on to the probe, I imagine, as his pitch card for Force the Will. And Pikula's found 2 blue cards that are pretty solid.
Yeah.
Interesting. So he exiled Snapcaster, and he chose not to cast Probe last turn. I guess there wasn't too much he could do with the extra card, but it could have potentially been a misstep or something relevant. Maybe another Force.
Yeah. So if you're Chris, what are you removing to the Force of Will?
I think Ponder makes a lot of sense there. I assume Chris will let this probe resolve now that he has a mentor in play. Try to protect it. Oliver just Flusterstorm. So it looks like he's going to cast Jace this turn. Is he going to get another basic?
Yes, indeed.
This is a slightly interesting spot to potentially get a Tundra where you might just, you just don't need a bunch of lands in play. Cast Gush in response to the Wasteland, although I guess you really do want to hit Mentor, so there's a lot of downside, but there's some upside too.
Yeah, I think I can see seeing Chris's hand. It somewhat depends on how you want your opponent developing also.
Yeah, I think that getting the island there makes a lot of sense.
So I was actually thinking, like, if you get the Tundra there, when he probed Chris, that would at least bring him down to a Tundra and a Ruby. But yeah, you don't want to gush yourself back to no lands.
Well, Chris found a path. So he can get rid of that Jace. This is actually a really great reason to have not fetched out his island, because I assume he doesn't have a basic plans in his deck. I also assume that Chris has the deck list to know that Oliver has a plains in his sideboard, and there's no realistic way he brought that in, right? I know he's, marking to cast Path to Exile on upkeep, but he could have gotten in an extra damage there.
No, I mean, you're not pathing on upkeep. You don't want it getting tapped in response. I think you just missed a damage.
He just missed the damage, yeah. Good point. Well, Oliver does have Supreme Verdict in his deck. That would be a pretty good one. Although his board's not going to be too exciting afterwards. Yeah.
Oh boy.
That's bad. This game is just over, right?
Yeah. Looks like Chris is going to get one to the good.
Yeah, even if he finds Supreme Verdict, he's not going to cast it in time. I guess if Chris draws running lands, he gets to cast Verdict at 4. If Chris draws any spell, that's no longer the case.
Well, even if he only draws one spell, if it doesn't cost 1, he could put in 1.
Well, if he draws a spell this turn, it makes another monk.
Oh, yeah. I guess it was just on the last turn. Yeah.
That's a mess. I mean, Oliver still has to draw exactly Supreme Verdict.
Yeah.
I guess if he draws Mentor this turn and Pikula bricks, he's got draws that make things relevant. Wow, that misstep just kills him.
Yeah, that's not what he's looking for.
Cast 2 missteps. I guess it still doesn't technically kill him. He's just going to have a whole bunch of creatures in play.
Right, I mean, I think he'll still get that Mentor off the board.
Right, but then you're facing down 4 monks. It's the same thing. Same damage. And any spell kills you still. Well, if he upkeeps it, that's more damage he's taking thanks to these 2 missteps than he would have otherwise.
Yeah, no matter what, I think you take more damage this way. If your opponent only has 1 spell, you take 4 instead of 3. If he has 2, you take 6 instead of 4.
Yeah. I mean, if he has to cast like a Mindbreak Trap and then he couldn't play another spell, maybe you've bought yourself that extra turn.
Sure.
I don't even know if that's true, but I mean, it's close. Well, it's still just Supreme Verdict or Bust, and that requires Chris to not draw a spell here, and probably not draw any more spells the rest of the game. Also, Oliver is going to have to fetch, which would put him to 1, assuming Chris draws nothing ever. And he'll never get to fetch again. And Chris has a Wasteland, so he's not going to have access to all that much mana either.
Details.
So it's like not a great spot for Oliver.
Yeah, so you're saying there's a chance.
Yeah, there's always a chance. Not always. There is a chance. Chris is just going to draw Pyroblast and kill him. That'll do it too.
All right.
Chris Pikula takes the match. He's 1-1. Oliver's 1-1. Well, it's only fair that we all become 1-1, right?
Well, we'll see.
Come on. I mean, if you're just going to discard if you discard your entire hand against Dave and keep your entire hand against me, that seems like you're picking sides. I don't like it.
That does sound like a bit of favoritism. That doesn't seem fair.
Yeah. Well, it should be fun. Obviously, you're going to just be navigating the same matchup 3 times. So yeah. I'm glad that at least I get a little bit of variety in what I probably lose to. But yeah, we'll see what happens. So up next, me versus Bob Marr. Stay tuned.